Okay, can you tell me your name again?
Sure, my name is Matt Ward. Yours?
And my name is Kirsten Zilm, or Kerstin Zilm in my language.
Hi, Castinzi.
Very
It's a
good.
pleasure to meet you.
And how are you involved in this case with the Lucero home?
Well, Mama Lucero came to Occupy Fights Foreclosures and asked for assistance. They were at the imminent stage of eviction, and we couldn't say no.
And why could you not say? Because I guess there's several cases similar to theirs out there.
Well, yes, I suppose. At the beginning, we were still apprising ourselves of the case, but when we get somebody who is ready to fight back, ready to stand up for herself, and who is ready to engage with the community in the way that it needs to be brought into the picture to have a successful defense like this one. When we get somebody like that who's ready to go, we try to respond to the call as well as we can.
And this case, how does it represent how banks treat people in the United States that have problems or that try to renegotiate their mortgages?
Well, certainly, but I'd say every case does. You know, this case is interesting because it's an example of how the bank will use race, will use class, will use a language barrier to manipulate an otherwise savvy person into making into making no mistake at all, and yet tricking them into entering default anyway. In this case, the Lucero family requested a loan modification. They saw in their future that they were not going to be able to keep up with payments, although they were making them at the time. And the bank responded with a loan modification package, and they dated the due date of the first payment the day before they offered the loan mod. So even though there'd been no missed payment up to that point, the moment that they offered the loan modification and the family signed it, they entered into default because the first payment was retroactively one day late.
But that was like scripted into the whole process.
Right, so it's like you get offered a loan modification on Tuesday, and it says, great, you get a loan modification, just make sure you make your first payment by Monday, but it's already Tuesday.
And did they have somebody help them translate the papers for them, or how did that work?
Quite the opposite. They actually had two different papers. The paper in Spanish said she was receiving a loan modification for payments for 6 months of $15.99 a month, and following that, she would receive a full loan modification. The contract that she actually signed was in English, and it was a forbearance agreement, which was agreeing to taking on a debt and had nothing to do with a loan modification whatsoever. So they literally presented her in Spanish a document that was a complete mistranslation of the English one and had her sign the English one.
Pretending or making her believe this is the English translation of what she had read in
Correct.
Spanish.
Yeah, they led her to believe that the document they were showing her was a literal translation of the English document, and the English document actually said something completely different.
That sucks.
Yeah, and it brings to bear one of the real issues that we have in this country at this moment, and particularly in non-judicial foreclosure states. It's important to understand that some states require a judge's order to evict, and some don't. And it's no coincidence that the ones that do not have incidences of foreclosure that are dramatically, dramatically higher than those who do. And in states that do not, such as California, such as Michigan, there is literally no protection in place for the homeowner without an extraordinary amount of money to be able to even fight on the merits of their case. The merit of the case doesn't even get brought up, assuming the bank follows, 5 protocols which they can fraudulently do at will. They manufacture documents, they have false notaries, and as long as there's a notary stamp on the document, the county recorder's office will take it. It doesn't matter if the name on it was signed by a robot. It doesn't matter if the notary's from 5 states away and you're supposed to be sitting at the same table with the person. None of those things matter. As long as they follow these processes, a stamp, a signature, a blank, they get through with a free pass, and we can't even fight them in court.
So you're saying that. So this is you saying Deutsche Bank has been doing these fraudulent things, or Carrington, or because this is sort of mixed up, at least what they told me, and I had a hard time understanding half of what the person from Deutsche Bank told me, but he says that it's all Carrington's. They are the servicer. They're doing everything that has to do with foreclosure. It's not none of their business.
That's what they'd like to say, but ultimately that's not how it works. It's actually really simple. The trustee has the responsibility of holding the note, the promissory note, and the deed of trust, which in combination are the claim to the house.
And this is with Deutsche Bank.
That's
right?
Deutsche Bank. The trustee holds the deed of trust. Trustee, trust. That's the definition of it and the derivation of it. They don't have those documents. And the way that banks move to foreclose on families is they hand off the responsibilities of doing the dirty work onto some pretty unscrupulous people who are willing to do it to get paid. So Carrington it's a mercenary, it's a gun for hire that Deutsche Bank is subbing in to do their dirty work, and then they're washing their hands of it and saying, oh no, we're just a victim in this too. That is complete hogwash. That is complete hogwash. The Deutsche Bank is the evicting party in this case. Carrington is merely doing their dirty work for them.
And did the family talk to Carrington people or to Deutsche Bank people? Or to somebody totally different?
I think your best bet would be to speak with the family about that one. I know that the majority of the negotiations have been going for the kingpin in this cartel, which would be Deutsche Bank in this particular case.
And how did you get in? What made you get involved in the case of Occupy foreclosures?
Well, that's kind of a complicated question, or it's a kind of a long answer. The encampment came down at the end of November, and we realized that there was a media strategy that was coming into play. That the police were going to disperse the encampments, the media was going to pretend that we didn't exist, and then simply claim Occupy's gone, and hope that we would collapse under the weight of our own egos. You know, for a while we really had access. You could call a councilman and speak, or a councilwoman, and speak with the councilor, not an aide. You could speak with a state senator, not an aide. Like, things like that are very intoxicating. It's very nice to feel powerful. And the problem with it is that it's granted and can be taken away. And so they took it away, and they hoped that we would collapse under our own weight. So we sat down and we said, okay, what's going to stop this strategy from working? And the only thing we can come up with was nothing. Nothing is going to stop this from working. That means it's a good strategy. So we asked ourselves, so if it's going to work, what can we do to fight it anyway? And we said what we really need to do is to start an offshoot, a project within this project that has a singular focus, that keeps the attention on the banks, that is one demand that people can coalesce around, that will bring up issues from within the community that are unavoidable the moment you enter them, and that will allow us to be Robin Hood and to help out people who really desperately need it. And ultimately, foreclosures to me seemed like the only way to accomplish all of that, and from that moment on I was sold. I've never been a homeowner. Maybe one day I will be, but not in this phony system.
And did you know all the terminology of foreclosures, or did you now learn that with the trustees and the services and all that stuff?
No, we didn't. We came in pretty cold. Homeowners who've gone through it a lot have started to learn a lot of this stuff. There's an incredible amount of self-education that has gone on within our organization. The amount of expertise and the breadth of what we're doing is so broad, it's astonishing. You know, you have Ruth Sarnoff. She's probably in her 80s. She was brought before the McCarthy trials as a student.
Wow,
and that was her start in activism. She's incredible. You've got Megan Nikolic. She lost her home to foreclosure and has become an expert in trust law and in understanding trusts. You have, Carlos, who was also wronged by Deutsche Bank. We have a number of different homeowners who Deutsche Bank is playing the supervillain role with at the moment. but we've all self-educated, and the real project of this is mutual aid. You know, just like Occupy Sandy that's going on right now, it's not charity, it's mutual aid. It's helping each other learn to help ourselves together. And if we can do that, we're going to keep becoming a force that's more and more powerful with each passing day.
And do you feel results of that work? Or notice or realize?
Honestly, when you're inside the belly of the beast, so to speak, the day-to-day dramas and the day-to-day sort of crises really consume a lot of your perspective. And it makes it hard for you even to remember the victories that you've had. I believe that the Homeowners Bill of Rights being passed in the state of California was largely due to this organization. The home of Derma Rodriguez was saved by this organization. The Perez family helped save themselves with the help of this organization. There are a number of stories and smaller successes. Going back to the beginning, our very first action was ensuring that a bankruptcy was filed and in place to stop the auction of a gentleman named Gary Cohen. And on the way out the door, we dispersed a second foreclosure auction that was going on in front of City Hall, because there's so many foreclosures that they can't even have one auction at a time. They stack them up. And so to me, yes, those are real signs of success. But for me, a single day that goes by at this house where this family still gets to be here is a victory. So I'm not impartial. I consider just about everything good that ever happens out of the borrowed time that we have a victory, because we're fighting against the most powerful entities in the world, and Deutsche Bank is one of them.
And when you're not here, are you staying here all the time at the moment, or?
I come and go. I actually have a bit of I have mixed feelings about spending every moment with the family, partly because it makes it very difficult for the family to get any time to themselves anymore. And that makes it really difficult for me to commit to permanently spending time on somebody's property. I have camped out here before. I will continue to do so, and I did live at the encampment at City Hall for full time when we were occupying public space.
And if you wouldn't do that, do you have a job, or do you? Is that your job at the moment, or?
I am employed. I have a partial employment at the moment that allows me the opportunity to barely scrape by, but to also have as much time as possible to contribute to efforts like this one. I work in advertising.
Mm-hmm. And what would be your main request now to the Deutsche Bank?
Well, regarding this family, or
yeah,
big
well,
picture?
maybe start with this family and then go with the big and taking this maybe also as an example. Okay, and then we need to go to the bigger picture.
For sure. With this family, I want them to obey the terms of the offers that they made, without the phony tricks of swapping out dates and making payments due before you make the offers, things like that. I believe that this family has earned that, and I believe that this family has shown an incredible amount of strength, and that deserves more merit. In the big picture, Deutsche Bank needs to stop working with law enforcement agencies in the United States to counter the orders of federal and district judges, and to use their capital to make themselves unaccountable to the law while evicting Americans from American soil, from Germany, while they couldn't do that to their own citizens. I expect them to treat the American people as well as they treat the German people, just as I expect Americans to treat Germans as well as we treat Americans. We're asking for equality here, and the idea that that a bank will treat its own people one way and then will go and victimize other people, to me that's no different from sweatshops. It's no different from slave labor. It's no different from child labor. It falls into the same category of exploitation and of greed and of destruction, and it's anti-human. And we here are fundamentally proponents of humanity and its value.
And would you hope that this also spreads into when you say the mutual aid, that the society gets a push towards that through the Occupy movement? That there's more moving towards that you just help each other, whether you're neighbors or you're the community or you're, I don't know.
Well, that's the only thing there is. No one is going to come and save us. There's nobody coming to save us. Like, we're in deep trouble as a world. We're approaching a possible extinction moment as a species. And there's no one here to save us. We have to save each other. We have to save ourselves. And we're first responders. These are the canaries in the coal mine. We're calling out right now, telling everybody that the house is on fire. And if people don't choose to stand up now, they're going to wake up when the house is burned down, and they're going to be on the street. It's not a question of whether people are going to stand together. It's a question of whether they're going to do it now, or if they're going to let things get even worse. This is first responder territory, and you saw it with Occupy Sandy. They were the first people to stand up there, and mutual aid was the road to recovery. If we can't find within ourselves the ability to care for each other and to regain the ideal of compassion that's been utterly destroyed by culture, by consumerist society, by nationalism, exceptionalism, we're totally hosed. So it's up to us, it's up to you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. How old are you? Can you tell me that?